principles with workplace strategies. In 2022, she launched Kiva Jade, redefining HR by focusing on personal empowerment over corporate structures. So, this woman is extremely interesting. We are going to speak today about faith, our second principle, second step to get riches. And I want to welcome my good friends, Dr. Peter James. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Louise. I'm so excited to be here with you and the entire team this morning and our special guest. Looking forward to diving on into this chapter of faith. Another great chapter, another introspective chapter that we all need to reflect on what that looks like for us. I've read it last week. I'm going to read it a little bit again today there, Louise. Napoleon Hill says, faith is the head chemist of the mind. When faith is blended with the vibration of thought, the subconscious mind instantly picks up the vibration, translates it into spiritual equivalent, and transmits it into infinite intelligence, as in the case of prayer. And this is so insightful for those of us who pray regularly. It really resonates that much more. So this is just the tip of the iceberg of where we're going today, Louise. I'm looking forward to diving in deeply with our special guest today. But hey, I'm going to give it right back to you to drive this and fly this plane today.
Thank you, doctor. Yes, absolutely. Faith is amazing. Nothing can be complete without faith. And also, I want to introduce our amazing co-host, Mr. Galen Binham. How are you, my friend?
Fantastic. Another great conversation. As we have said a couple of times, faith is so important. It's one thing to have a clear definition of your goal and to have desire for your goal, but you've got to have faith that it's going to be possible. Because whatever you believe to be true, that's what's going to happen. If you believe that it's not possible to accomplish these goals, that's what's going to happen. It's not going to be possible to accomplish these goals. If you believe that it's just a mere formality and we're waiting for the universe to catch up with our vision for what the world needs to be, that's what's going to happen. So faith is incredibly important. Can't wait to get to hear from our guest, Julie, because she is one of the most important, most ideal people to guide us through this conversation. Can't wait to get into it.
Yes. Well, thank you. Well, thank you, my friends. And here we go. We're going to start our show full with pushing forward. We're switching to second gear because we want to get momentum. We're going to get faster because this chapter, it is one of my favorites. Because I didn't have much faith. And then when I read this book, the concept, my understanding of faith changed. And that is part of your consciousness. When our consciousness grows and expands, everything gets so much better. So, well, Miss Julie, can you please come on? I want to introduce every single one of you guys to Miss Julie. I'm sorry, Julie Oldbury. How are you?
I'm great, Luis. It's so great to be with you and with Dr. Peter and Galen and Anne. Thank you so much for having me on this morning.
It is a true honor to have you here. And well, we would like you to please introduce yourself a little bit. Give us a little bit of who are you and what are you here?
Yes, well, basically, I've had my entire career in human resources for over 30 years, like you mentioned. And human resources is a career that comes with its fair share of criticism. And I know, like, late in my career, someone had made a comment to me, like a colleague, and they're like, Oldbury, where's the human in human resources? And of course, I took that like to heart and somewhat personally because human resources is like my identity. And then, I ended up leaving employment and starting my own company. And at that point, I could really like detach from that
Mhm,
comment.
mhm,
And I started to see the truth in it. It was, and I really wanted to answer that question, like, why are people asking this? And it kind of came to me. I mean, you mentioned I'm getting my doctorate in metaphysics and organizational leadership, and I've always kind of had that metaphysical inclination about me. I just, even from like a child, it's just within me. And I had like these books that I was reading at the time, like Seth Speaks and
Mm,
Nature of Personal Reality. It had much more of that component to it. And, that concept of creating your own reality. But, I'm like 20 years old at the time. And
yeah.
I'm like reading this stuff and it's really heavy. And I don't really have a whole lot of life experience or context to
Hmm.
really, contextualize that, make it like through my own experience. So anyway, I'm in the HR and all this, and I'm coming through and I find this like human consciousness element. This is the key. This is the missing human in human resources. And so I'm like endeavoring to like, how can I make this information like relatable in the workforce? What can I, bring to this? How can I bring this into employment? And so I got to thinking about, well, who speaks about leadership and success, like, you know, practically. And that sort of brought me back to Napoleon Hill.
Mhm.
My husband had introduced me to him like 20 years ago, but I'm like, oh, hi, nice to meet you, Napoleon, but I got a life, I'm busy. So I did like the read it, I'm one and done. But it wasn't until this one night I was out walking and I started listening to the master course, the original science of success on Audible, and I'm listening, and he's talks about something in faith. And I like stop and I get my notes app out and I'm like typing every word he says because he's talking about your major purpose. And he's like, write out the clear statement, sign it, commit it to memory. And then he talks about this. He's like, and repeat it orally at least once a day in the form of a prayer or an affirmation, like an auto suggestion.
Mhm.
But this is what he says in the master course that I don't hear him say anywhere else. And this is what like pushed me back. It's like you can see the advantage of this because it places your faith in your creator squarely back at you.
Mhm.
And I was like, I stunned with that because to me, it brought it back. I'm like, my faith in my creator, it puts that back on me. I'm like, wait, I am the creator. I'm like the
Yeah,
co-creator
yeah,
of
no,
this.
for
And
sure.
that whole thing sort of transformed just how I felt about faith in general, not necessarily from a religious context,
Of course.
but,
Hmm.
from that inside yourself type of
Hmm.
place. So that was really my moment, I would say. And then interestingly, Lewis, you might find this most fascinating. The next, like that night after the walk, I had gone home and I'm scrolling, just on my social media, and I
Hmm.
come across the Napoleon Hill Institute is having a free event the next day. And that was what brought me into the Napoleon Hill Institute. And certainly that my involvement has really
Hmm.
brought these principles in Napoleon Hill to life for me. And, learning with you, Luis, and all of our amazing coaches and leadership, that has been like a family and a home for my whole person to be at, like, in all of that. So just this
Absolutely.
material, it brings people together. It really does. And just this opportunity, had it not been for all of this, I wouldn't be here with you today. So I'm so just grateful and so excited to talk about this with you all.
No, thank you. Yes, absolutely. And we're gonna go back to it because that's very interesting. And now, uh, Galen, would you
Yeah,
like to introduce
yeah,
our video?
yeah, I
Go
got
ahead.
a question before I introduce the video. I
Yeah,
got a
yeah, yeah.
question for Julie. So,
Please.
Julie, I'm curious. Talk to me a little bit about metaphysical science and organizational leadership. What's the nexus between those two?
I think it's really kind of everything. I mean, these concepts, you're really tapping into your subconscious and, all of that. I mean, that's the component. That is like who we are and, to live, it's like within us to do that. And when you look at, you know, I see it kind of like really a macro thing. Like when people start to have division and concerns within their country and stuff, and they're saying like, oh, I have problems in my country, or I have problems with my employer or my company or this or that. It's really, you have to take a look inside, because everything is sort of that reflection of you and what you're here to sort of experience with it. So when I look at that aspect, I just think so many people don't have that connection to themselves. And that's, and I think a lot of times metaphysics gets passed off as woo-woo, and I just kind of want to say to the world, woo-woo works. You know what I mean? So like, we're trying everything. It's like the answer is right in front of us. It is right here. It's all mapped out. It's every word of it is written down. And, it's our obligation, our responsibility as humans that have this awareness to bring this forward and to make sure that everybody has, I'll use an employment word, an equal opportunity for success in their lives. And when everybody can feel this within themselves, I have complete faith that, it works out for everyone. We all benefit from that. And I really just feel so passionate that this is really the key. This is, the key principles. If people could adopt this and really kind of understand it. And this is why I would love for this type of information to be in our public education system, because it starts, this is where it changes, and you can make that change in one generation by putting these principles into the school. And, there's such a nice tie-in, I think, for whether you are a person of a religious faith, or even if you're not, you can find a faith in yourself and in, that connection and consciousness that we're all tied into. So
fantastic. Well, speaking of macro view and kind of how all of this works together, back to Lewis's point, I want to share this video because this video really does kind of sum up how everything fits together. And like Julie, like you said, on surface, you might think that this is kind of woo-woo, but these principles actually kind of work. As my brother likes to say, it's not possible for this philosophy to work for everyone except you, right? It can't work for everyone except you. It works for you as well. So let's take a listen to this, and we'll be back on the other side.
Number 1 is desire. Napoleon Hill said that everything starts with a burning desire, a compelling reason for doing what it is we do. Step 2 is faith, having belief in our ability to attain that which we desire. Step 3 is what we call autosuggestion. Autosuggestion simply means being very intentional about the things that we are pouring into our thoughts, into our brains, and into our consciousness. Our brains, our minds will receive everything automatically, but we have to work extra hard to make sure that the positive things are what we are feeding ourselves, because those positive thoughts are going to turn into positive actions. Step number 4 is specialized knowledge. No one person knows everything, even about whatever their particular area of expertise might be. And the value of the Mastermind principle is using the specialized knowledge of other people. Step number 5 is imagination, the workshop of the mind. Everything starts with our imagination and our thoughts, the burning desire to transform those thoughts into our reality. In order to do that, we have to take a look at step 6, which is organized planning. That is how we crystallize our desire into action, organizing ourselves. Having the thought and not acting on the thought isn't going to get us anywhere. We have the thought, we go through the organized planning to transform that thought into action. Step number 7 is decision. What Napoleon Hill said is the mastery of procrastination. Napoleon Hill said that the antidote to procrastination is simply to make a decision and then move on that decision. Step 8 is persistence. We have to have a sustained effort which is induced by our faith in order to achieve our goals. One of Napoleon Hill's books I love, even the title, 3 Feet from Gold. Those people who became rich during the gold rush in the Wild Wild West days didn't do that because they were necessarily smarter or had better information than anyone else. It's because they stayed just a little bit longer. Sometimes people left when they were just literally 3 feet from gold. So hanging in there, being persistent, is step number 8. Step number 9, the power of the mastermind, the driving force. None of us can accomplish anything on our own. Everybody, I don't care who you are, from the most prominent person to the person who might be considered the lowest on the totem pole, everybody has someone who helped them get to where they are. And the power of the mastermind is being able to use those influences around us, use the thoughts, use the knowledge, use the exploration of other people to help us in achieving our goal. Step number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This title can be a little confusing, but essentially what the mystery of sex transmutation means is that we oftentimes in our society think of sex as being purely physical. It is absolutely physical, but what Napoleon Hill teaches us is that sex also has an emotional element, and that sex is the strongest of our desires. That if we can take our sexual energy, transform that into positive, creative influences, it can propel us to new heights. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about the mystery of step 10, which is sex transmutation. Step number 11 is the subconscious mind, which Napoleon Hill tells us is the connecting leap between our human mind and the infinite intelligence, the source of all thought, the source of all creativity. Conscious mind, we spent some time talking about how we use that through the influence of autosuggestion and what we're feeding into our mind. Step number 12, which is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Final step number 13, the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. This is the final step through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
Well, welcome back. I love this video. I love this video. It's so compelling. It's looking at it, it's just listen to it, it's amazing. Well, Julie, I am intrigued by the words that Napoleon Hill actually when they hit you, right? So can you I know you went a little bit into it, but what was that catalyzer? What made you feel that you wanted to do this, like get deep into this information?
I think it was just that it had always been inside of me. Like,
Mhm.
I've always kind of felt that how everybody was telling me to live my life or with the rules of life, that we all know, like go to work, go to school, go to work, get a degree, go back to keep working, like all of that was not really how I thought that it worked in my mind. And I think that always left some type of sort of dissatisfaction or discontent, and it played into for my own person, like my own self-esteem and confidence, because I didn't really feel comfortable with the game of life, like how these rules are played. So to see, like, it kind of mapped out in a way that made sense to me, and that kind of taps into that inner element um, of our humanity. And, that's what crystallized it for me. And just this whole concept of, you know, because I thought maybe like Seth or metaphysics was the only place saying these types of things of
Mm.
faith and create your reality. But when you see that it's not, it's a law, you know what I mean? It's really like it's irrefutable law in as far as I'm concerned. And I can't ignore that. I have to live in harmony with it. And,
Mhm.
and when I do, and when I feel aligned with that, I just know everything works out.
Yes, when there's no resistance, right?
Correct.
Doctor, yes, Peter, what question do you have, or what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, Julie, thank you so much for insight. You got me going in 100 different directions in my brain. I'm looking at this faith chapter of Napoleon Hill. He has a section that is titled "Faith is a State of Mind," which may be also induced by auto-suggestion.
Mhm.
Of course, I'm sure you've dissected this a little bit, especially as it relates to auto-suggestion. But now I want to bring it out to real world application to a certain extent. And sometimes, not sometimes, oftentimes we get in our own way and we auto suggest things that we don't even realize that we're doing so. But then we don't really digest what Napoleon Hill is talking about and how we can apply it for our own selves in a positive, in a better path. Um, how do you introduce that to someone who may be a skeptic, someone who may be like, oh, I don't know about this stuff. Here's a great example, really quick. When I was younger, I used to think people who recited affirmations were a little bit of cuckoo, a little bit. Now I'm older, I'm that cuckoo guy for sure. But how do you help to open that up for people to show them that this mindset really, this mindset shift can be something that manifests for positivity or whatever their goals and objectives are?
I think first and foremost, you help people or show them by being the example of it, by
Mm-hmm.
just living them, right? I mean, that's the first and foremost. But what I like to talk to people about is um, it's really a thought by thought process,
Mm-hmm.
all of this. I spend a lot of time in the day playing like whack-a-mole with my thoughts, where, you're just like, oh, you again? You're popping up here to, make me nervous before I'm going on a podcast? Like, what are you doing to me? Like this kind of thing but it's with every thought, you have a little bit of space in there and you have the moment where you can make a decision to
Mm-hmm.
choose a better thought, right? To choose a thought that's going to take you a little bit higher. And you can go in and like look at that and understand, we say a lot of times like, um, you know, we get in our own way or things
Yeah.
like that. But I would submit that we don't do that. Our programming does that.
Mm-hmm.
All of what has been absorbed, we have absorbed this thinking into us. So much of what we think and feel about ourselves is not even our own. It doesn't even belong to us. It
Right.
belongs to the people that put it onto us and that we accepted. And that's, I like the very first thing that I talk to people about is I tell them just forget everything. Forget it all. Forget everything anyone has ever said about you, what they think about you, all of it, and like get yourself down to like base, get yourself like that. And who are you, right? And take it from there. Who do you
Yeah.
want to be? What is it that you feel in your life? And so, and then of course that goes right into purpose and
Yeah.
desire and all that. And we'll walk through in that order. But yeah, I would
Yeah,
say.
that's great. That's great. Actually, and what you're saying is so phenomenal, so true. We need to try to forget everything that we've learned or been programmed to do in our mainstream society. It can be a little challenging with because now look what inundates us on a regular basis. Social media, news, music, all this stuff that can sway us in a direction that we don't necessarily want to go. So I love what you said about going to the base, but even removing all of that stimuli that can over talk or over overcomplicate what you're trying to do, where you're trying to go, your own purpose, your own desire. But sometimes that's even hard for people to turn that stuff off as well. So I think
Yes,
that maybe another requirement is discipline.
for sure. I would say discipline, but you know, that it's being somewhat very conscious of what you're allowing to get into you. I mean, this was the challenge for me. I mean, I really shut television off. I turned off my podcast. I used to be a political junkie. I could tell you every single thing that everybody did on any given day. And now it's just like, you know, I'll hear about the highlights and the world still goes on because I know that the world exists the way that, you know, I created to exist. And I'm just like really going to be full of love and light. I am full of love and light, and that's what I believe the world is full of too. We just have to be able to see it. You know, we have to shift our own lens to be able to find and like, you know, break through the negativity and the division and come back to our core, our humanity, our consciousness, and what brings us together as humans.
Yeah, that is so needed in today's day and time. So thank you so much. Hey, folks, Louise and Galen, sorry I went down a little rabbit hole there, but hopefully you're both okay with that.
All good. It
No,
was very, very, very important. It was, I liked
actually,
it. I took notes.
I want to stay in that rabbit hole a little bit because, Julie, you've kind of touched on something that I've become fascinated by. We have, we are now starting to understand the importance of social media algorithms. And just the other day, I found myself fascinated by this cat video on YouTube. And so I clicked on and watched the cat video, and then all of a sudden there was another cat video that seemed kind of interesting. So I watched that too. And now I'm getting inundated by cat videos. I can't turn it off. And so I've got to find a way to reset the YouTube algorithm. And I draw the analogy to our mental algorithm. We have something that we find fascinating, and if we're not careful, all of a sudden we will see the world through that filter. And so I wanted to ask you, because I've started suggesting to my clients what you've just said, that we need to find a way to reset our mental algorithm. What are some tangible things, and you've mentioned some already, what are some tangible things that you do or you suggest to reset our mental algorithm?
Yeah, I think that's, you know, for again, the forgetting first, but then the remembering, right? That this is where you go in and remember who you are. And you, I think practically applied with that, like for me personally, I just started writing down like everything without a filter, just things that I liked in life, I was passionate about, I loved, and I just made those connections. And as I kind of wrote everything down and I saw on a piece of paper, those words all began to tell their own story, you know. And I think you'll find that if you can put something out about yourself and look at it and you kind of like hover over it more objectively, you can start to see your own story and how all the dots connect in your life to bring you toward that purpose. And I want to like just focus on that purpose part because I think that's just critically important. If you don't have something that you're waking up for every day, then, you know, it's hard to get to the next step. You really can't move to step two if you don't have the step one, you know. But I think too, for purpose, that can get a little like overwhelming for people, depending also at the stage of their life, right? So you want to be cognizant of where is this person at? I mean, I think we know a lot of people, it takes, you know, until 40, maybe until you start to really get some of this and apply it and whatnot. But, you know, we're all like we want to be young forever and 40 sounds really old. Like that kind of thing. And you think like, my life is over. What am I going to do? How can I come up with this new purpose now for me, like 50? And but what I found is that when I discovered my purpose, it was like being reborn. And I don't want that to sound like kind of like cliche or whatever, but I mean, I felt a whole new life inside of me. I mean, I was somebody, and you can ask my husband out, working 14, 16, 18 hours a day. And by the weekend, being like in bed and always sick and always tired and always exhausted and always this, you know what I mean? But then when you get a purpose behind that, now I function on 5 hours of sleep. And I say I work 18 hours a day, but nothing that I do like feels like work, except the work that I have to do inside my own head, like managing the thoughts and all of that process. I'm sorry if I went
That's
a
full.
little bit off
No,
topic,
no,
but
that's full-time work. Managing the thoughts is full-time work.
it sure is. And
Mhm.
yeah, we need to help people with just understanding that process in and of it itself.
Well, it comes down to me, it
I
comes
am.
down to awareness. It comes down to awareness. And the way our awareness grows is by studying, by
Mhm.
reading, by embodying it, the principles. So, uh, uh, Julie, shifting back a little bit more towards faith, what is an example where your faith was tried and tested?
It's every day, really. I tell you, honestly, it is because I have a lot of work to do on myself still. So this is the principle that I'm really digging into. But I just kind of feel like, you know, faith is one of those things when it's like the best way I can describe it, you're like driving out your back window and you're like, all right, but I'm still gonna get here safely, right? Like you can't really know that you had enough of it unless you like look behind and say, oh yeah, it did that. But it's very much like a blindness
Hmm.
to it,
Hmm.
right? You don't really know how you're going to get there because you're looking out the back window, but you have
Right.
full trust that you safely arrive, like
Absolutely.
without question.
How
It's like,
was Yeah, I would like to, if you can go, we're going to go back in time and let's see what your story is about. How important, how much of faith did you grab when you made that transition from the corporate world to your own business?
yeah, that was huge. It was due to like a political change. So I had an inkling or an idea that 6 months after they fired my city manager that I would be next. And when that did actually come, when I manifested that, I guess, and if I have to be completely, take 100% responsibility, I guess really I left myself. But it was in that moment something clicked in me, and I really thought that it could have been a devastation. I mean, I was making a lot of money. My family relied on this income, for me to be a producer or contributor to that. And I don't know, something in that moment, felt this surge of like confidence and self-worth. And I felt like I had just been set free to do the big thing. Whatever the big thing was, it was like I had just the universe set me up. And I just knew in that moment I was never going to let that opportunity pass me by. I would take everything I could and figure out what it was I was meant to be. So I went through all of the forgetting, the remembering, and all of that, through the process. But in that moment, that was key for me. And I didn't even really realize it, but the whole first year of building my company was completely built. I was doing it on faith. I just every day did something. I didn't have a business card. The phone would ring. you know what I mean? And then the next project would come in and it just all kept working. I kept doing the work to build the company. The clients kept coming. And, you know, it was just when I let go of that sort of control of it and I put it, and I really started to believe that everything just works out for me. You know, the universe is always working in my favor. And I could see that, you know, I could see it happening. And
Mhm.
then obviously when I got into the material and began studying with Napoleon Hill Institute, I mean, it just cemented that in me. But you know, but that's not to say it's not tested and that like I don't get that the butterflies in my stomach where I feel like I'm gonna, you know, throw up or, you know, I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this? Or, you know, the bills are coming in or I have this thing that I really want to invest in and I
Mhm.
don't know where the money is today, but I know it's going to be there. And I take that leap of faith. You know, I make a decision to trust. Every day is a decision to trust in myself and that I would not have been blessed with this imagination, with this idea, with this vision, if it wasn't already part of me and something that I could completely
Mhm.
deliver on. So,
Doctor.
Yeah, this is such good stuff. I want to come back full circle to something you also said about your purpose. I know this is going to benefit so many people who are watching. You said you, especially when you were in jobs transitions a little bit, you had to take some time to identify your purpose. And once that opened up for you, it was like you were living a new life. Tell us about that process, because I've had that process in my own self, and I feel like it changed everything. Um, and I won't even go into too much detail right now about what it did, but what do you recommend that process look like for people, and how might faith apply to that as well?
um, I'm sorry, Peter. Could you just ask it one more
No,
time?
no,
Because I
no.
kind of was thinking about like everything around it and I lost the
I was
question.
no, 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 you're so good. You're so good about the purpose. When someone oftentimes when we go to work at the beginnings and the outset of our career, we're going to work just to find a job to make money. But that purpose thing that you identify is so fulfilling. It so takes us to another level. It transcends everything that we do. How would you recommend someone go about trying to find their purpose? And how might faith apply to that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I do really think it for me, and again, it was like the writing it down. You
Yeah.
have to like get it out of you. You know, you have to
Mhm.
dig in. I talk about this a lot, this concept of kind of like digging, you know, into yourself. It's not it- you the other thing I think that's needs to be kind of discussed though about this is when people are talking about their purpose is
Mhm.
it's so personal and it's so
Yeah.
like in you and it's a lot of times often buried but you really need to like embrace that essence of you, that
Mm.
spirit that's like in you. And but you have to have a level of objectivity to it. You know,
Mm.
if you could, I don't know how I did it, but I was able to get that objectivity. And again, I think I did it. It was a choice. It was a decision. Again, I
Yeah.
choose to figure this out. I choose to figure myself out and what I want to do and
You
make a
made
decision that I'm
you
going
made
to
that
do that.
definitive choice, what I'm hearing you say though, too.
Right.
That's what I'm hearing you
And
say.
I'm willing to go through the time. I'm willing to carve out the time to do it, but I'm also willing to go through the pain of
Mm.
it because there is, I think, oftentimes like pain. You have to get through those layers because I think you can get lost in that, right? Like there, um, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like the practical application that's in the books or that people talk about doesn't always reach the level of like, this is really hard work inside yourself. And you have to be honest with yourself. And I had to look back at just my own habits or my own kind of routines or my relationships or whatever, and kind of take a look at why was I doing those things, or why was I attracting that, or why was I reacting the way I did. And if you aren't willing to be objective about that, you really can't move and grow, because you're just going to make excuses around why you're that. Oh, it's them, it's this situation, it's everything around me. But it's really trying to help people to understand it's all of everything that is inside of you. There is like, the game is not out here and around, the game is in you.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just really being able to be introspective. I'm an introvert, I'm an intuitive person. That's where I go for my energy and my peace. But somebody who's more extroverted and gets their energy, of their human energy, from other people and from the outside world, I think that's a little more challenging sometimes to go into that level of introspection. It's not maybe your inclination or your nature. So I just think all of this is so individual. You don't really know how somebody else is going to react to it, or what's going to necessarily work with them. But when you talk about that faith, right, Lewis, you had mentioned that, or how does it tie into the faith, is like, I have faith that in humanity, right? I have faith in that all of us have this in us. We're all connected, right? In our consciousness and our humanity. And that connection in and of itself, it gets to this point where what you can help somebody with, be like, borrow my belief. I hear that a lot, right? Like, borrow mine until you can figure this out for yourself. Watch me. I'm doing the work. Follow what's happening within me. Because sometimes it's just having that other person who can sort of connect with you to sort of guide you along those principles. But please, everybody, make no mistake, there's no one that can do it for you. There's no one that can make these principles come alive for you but you. There's nobody that can make your life what you want it to be but you. And there's nobody really stopping you except that thing you're programming. It's what you believe, and it's how much faith do you have in yourself, what it comes
Yes.
down to.
Yes, Galen.
Hey, Julie, I want to run this by you because I'm just so identifying with so much that you're saying. I hear clients, not so much clients, but I hear people who I meet, people in my life say something to the effect of, Galen, this doesn't sound like it could be real because it can't be that easy. What if I try this and it doesn't work? And my response is often, got it. What if you try it and it does? What if it happens to be just this easy? What's your response to people who say, Julie, you're making this sound so easy that you've just got to have faith that you can create the world that you want for your life? That just sounds way too Pollyannish. What's your reaction to that?
I say to that, and I think it is Pollyanna-ish if you're going to say it from day one to your goal or purpose being accomplished, right? Yeah, you're not just going to get there. It's thought by thought, right? Everything that we do, the work is thought by thought. So when you can break it down that way, you can manage a thought, right? That's where the faith comes in, and it's the thought part is very interesting to me, because it's all about our language.
Hmm.
Really, it's the words we choose to say. And I'm not one of these people that always likes to go on or make videos or just talk or whatever, because I'm much more intentional about the words that I select, because I try to make sure that they have a a positive reinforcement to them, and not like, reinforcing the negative that can come out. So just, choosing that language and choosing each individual thought to get there. I
Love
mean,
it.
that's what it is.
Love it. That's again something else that I'm on because the unintended meaning behind the words that we use is what our subconscious picks up on. And one of the words that I'm trying to root out of my vocabulary, and I used it earlier today and tried to, and I corrected myself. Here I am again, is the word try. Because to say the word try means I don't believe I can do this, so I'm going to give myself an out. So I can say, well, I tried. And that's all I really promised. I promised that I would try. And, Anne McNeil even talks about this. Either do it or you don't do it. But trying is kind of this lukewarm back channel way of saying, well, I'm only committing to trying. I'm not committing to doing it. What are some other words that have that same meaning where it sounds good, but subconsciously you're giving yourself an out?
Yeah, I look at it like, I don't know, I think of words like um limits, or things like that, or when you put just those sort of words that you use, and that they might not be negative words, but they could have like a negative connotation, like a limitless. Well, you're still putting a limit on
Mm,
it, right? So the word limitless in and of itself has a limit attached to it.
wow.
And so it's kind of hard when you start doing this like word salad in your affirmations and stuff. This is, why writing affirmations is all, like, to find the words that are truly going to reinforce what you want, because you have to be careful how you word those affirmations, because they're going to work. So you want to make sure that you're putting the right language into them as well. I don't
Yeah.
know if that answered
No,
your
no,
question.
that does. That does. Lewis, back to you.
Yes, sir. For sure, words can create and help us to develop our faith. Absolutely. It's an internal dialogue, right? What I'm talking to myself, if I'm like one of those words, it's one day, right? One day.
Mhm.
I still haven't find that day in the calendar.
Yeah.
I haven't, and that's one of the things that I work with my own clients as well, like very intentional with the words, especially on mindset. If you believe you can do it, what the mind can achieve and believe, think and believe it can achieve. It's that simple. So it is simple. It's not easy because it's the creation of a new habit, right? So, and is that, and we have, I want to acknowledge the people on YouTube. We have, because we have you can always come back and watch it. You can watch some of our past episodes. And we have a fantastic people. So we have Carla Hill, we have Johnny Lloyd, V. Lynn Whitfield, inspired by Juanita. So we have a pretty good group of people here interacting on YouTube, and we love you guys to give us a thumbs up and get notifications so we can help the algorithm, right, Mr. Glenn? So we can help us to get out there, so we can impact more people, we can help more people. And actually, you kind of went through this, but I would really like you to go over this. Um, Carla Hills is asking, what is one consistent daily action I could implement to increase my faith?
Good question. What
It's a
I'm trying to
very
think,
good
what do I
question.
do to increase my faith? Um, Believe. Yeah, really believe in yourself. Just make the choice today in your thought, whatever it is that brought you to ask that question, like, how can I have more faith? Just make the decision that you do have it. Don't ask how you can have it, just have it. Right? And just tell yourself, I have it. And I am faithful. I am faithful. I know that might sound simplistic for
Mhm.
this, but truthfully, just start repeating that to yourself. I am a being of immense power. I create my own reality. I am faithful. Whatever you have to do in your own mind, just start telling yourself the story. Start writing the script. Right? Just start writing it out and just tell yourself that story over and over again, and you will get there.
Beautiful. I hope everybody wrote that down. I hope you wrote it down. Well, we're coming close to the end of the episode, so I would like to go around the table and get the nuggets, the stuff that you got, the things that you picked. And for me, I'm gonna start with me. The composite of your thoughts. You didn't say it like that, but that's the word that came to, like, putting, you were going to the thoughts, the words, the actions, everything, and it's going to start developing the new you, the reality that you want. That's what I got. So I don't know if you want to add to it, or we can go to one of the other hosts.
And
Oh, the
Louise,
host.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Julie.
Oh no, I was going to say to pass it on to you.
Louise, we didn't know how to stay in touch with you as well, my friend. That was very
Oh,
insightful. But how do we stay in touch with Louise?
yes. I'm on social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, basically, except on TikTok. Well, I'm on TikTok, but I don't manage that one. But my website is luisjimenezcoaching.com. And whether it's in Spanish or English, I can help you to get to the next level. And a master class is coming soon, so I will let you know very, very soon about it.
Very
Thank you.
awesome. Very awesome there, Louise. I like how you said that, Louise. I'm on TikTok, but I'm really not on TikTok. That's I can relate to that very, very
I
well.
have people working my social media, and I don't even have it on my phone because I know exactly what was saying earlier. If
Yeah.
I get into it, I know how that works, the dopamine hits and all the stuff that hits in your brain. So I try to stay away from that. I'm trying to help people and be way more productive with the time.
I'm with you there, my friend, for sure. The great conversation, Julie. Thank you so much. This is very insightful. So many different things that you said, and even so many things that resonated with me because I talk a lot about this with my clients and even consulting work that I do. I love that phrase that you mentioned. I even put it in the chat on YouTube. The game is not all around us; it's actually in us. And so, how are we playing that inner game? You're watching this, how are you playing your inner game as opposed to letting the world tell you what game you need to play, right? So that was very powerful. Hey, folks, my name is Dr. Peter A. James. I am the high performance coach helping you to shift your mindset. You can find me at shiftyourmindset.com and probably just LinkedIn. That is where I play at. I don't stay there a long time, but I do play around on there for sure. Stay tuned. We have another edition of the Own Your Career Challenge coming up very soon. If you know what's going on in the environment, the game they're trying to get you to play, they're trying to get you to play their career game. Maybe it's about time that you start playing your career game and own your own career. So stay tuned for that, folks. In the meantime, continue to think and grow rich. Galen, what a show.
Oh my gosh, what a show. This is the conversation that I really hope everyone is able to have, not only with themselves, but with those people in your lives that you know that there's potential, you know that they've got greatness, but they don't recognize it yet. I would encourage everyone to share this video with at least 3 people that you would love to either introduce them to their other selves or remind them of who they say they are. Because I believe that Julie hit on this kind of in passing, but I think it's really, really significant. I don't believe that we have to discover our purpose. I think we have to remember our purpose. I think we all know what we were put here to do, but we forget. And the reason we forget is because of what Dr. Peter said. The world is trying to tell you who they want you to be. Right? Because if I can tell you who I want you to be, then you can buy my thing for $9.99 plus shipping and handling. But we have to remember who we are. And typically it's that small voice inside of us that's whispering, this is really who you are supposed to be. That loud voice is the world trying to tell you who they want you to be. That small voice is your real, your true self trying to remind you of what you were put here on this planet to do. So those are my thoughts. That's what I'm getting from this conversation. Galen Bingham, the leadership strategist. You can find me in so many different places. Except on Facebook. I'm not on Facebook anymore. Best way to get a hold of me is to go to my website, killglobalcoaching.com or galenbingham.com. Or you can go to any podcast platform and type in Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership, and you will find my award-winning podcast, Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership, where we talk to leaders all over the world about the whiskeys they drink, the music they listen to, and what they believe it really takes to be an effective leader. Double dog dare you to try us at least once. Guarantee you that you will get something that will take you at least one step closer to who you are supposed to be. Fantastic conversation, Julie. Thank you so much for joining us. Luis,
Thank you
back
so
to you.
very much.
No,
Yeah.
thank you. Where can we find you, Julie?
Me? Oh, you can find me at the usworkforce.com. And that's
The
America's
us
first, the us
work.
workforce. Because remember, the work that we have to do is within us.
Yes. Beautiful. I love how you just have put this together. I love it. I love it. Fantastic concept. Beautiful. Well, I want to thank everyone. I want to thank Julie for being here this early Saturday. Galen, Dr. Peter, Anne, she's traveling around the world, uh, leading by example, right? So
Exactly.
beautiful, beautiful. And thank you for joining us on Think and Grow Rich podcast. We are here for you, my friends, and I will see you all next week.
Thank you
Have a
very much.
wonderful, wonderful rest of your weekend. Thank you, Julie. Have a blessed day.